Thank you so much. We're gonna turn it over to Andreas.
It's a pleasure to speak at this event. Thank you, Maroun, for inviting me, and for Barry and the DPAA for hosting this. I'm here to talk to you about a real case study that occurred in partnership with Intel, the IoT team, Maroun's department, Hivestack, and our Japanese partners called Liveboard. So this is a programmatic digital out-of-home campaign that really highlighted a real-world case study of what Intel has been championing as the 3A concept. So the 3A concept was introduced at the DPAA Summit, Video Everywhere Summit in 2019 by Maroun, and it basically refers to the 3A concept, which is making digital out-of-home addressable, accountable, and attributable. And this is also a first outside-in buy in Japan. So what do we mean by an outside-in buy? This is a term that was introduced by the trade desk when Jeff Green expanded the trade desk into China. And the vision behind outside-in buys was to basically attract international marketers and brands to activate inside of China and ultimately bring dollars and ad tech dollars to Chinese publishers. This is the same concept where we're attracting international marketers like Intel IoT team in the United States to activate programmatically in Japan, on Japan screens, so outside in. This is called the See It All campaign, and I'll show you the creative in a second. There were basically 4 tactics on this campaign. The goal was to target healthcare decision makers, manufacturing decision makers, retailer decision makers, and business decision makers. Understand their movement patterns across Japan, and then programmatically activate screens from Liveboard, who is our supply partner and has the ability to understand what screens index the highest against these audiences. In terms of KPI, the goal was to drive a lift in what's called Bombora Surge. So Bombora is a B2B intent measurement company that is used by many B2B companies to the likes of Intel. And Intel uses Bombora to understand whether they're driving interest towards and consideration towards Intel platforms. This ran across multiple Japan prefectures, Tokyo and outside of Tokyo, ran in July for 4 weeks, and the goal was to deliver 4 million impressions. So the actual creative itself was all about this See It All campaign, which is essentially this concept that Intel introduced, which is little things accumulate to big differences. And Intel essentially has chips and dedicated hardware instructions inside their platforms that allow computer vision and image processing to detect small anomalies in healthcare, imaging equipment, in manufacturing equipment, that can eventually lead to gross issues and gross sort of larger issues. And Intel has the ability to detect these small issues, catch them before they become big issues. So that's what the See It All campaign is about. And so on the healthcare creative, this was all about basically promoting this creative that has the ability to have Intel platforms detect in real time life-threatening conditions through computer vision on medical imaging. The other creative for targeting the manufacturing sector was related to how Intel has dedicated silicon that has computer vision instructions that can enable manufacturers and manufacturing companies to detect small anomalies on the conveyor belt and detect those issues before they become large-scale issues. Similarly as well, when you look at the fast food or the quick QSR industry, there's a lot of people waiting in line to basically place their order. Intel has dedicated chipsets that allow hardware acceleration for powering these kiosks to basically improve the consumer experience and eliminate lineups by having self-serve kiosks at these QSR restaurants. So
when
this
businesses
is
want big results, they go to big places and take their big ideas to the big cheese. But they should really be thinking small, like serving more customers during the lunch rush, detecting defective products earlier in the manufacturing process, or cutting the time to get x-rays analyzed to save more lives. In your business, small could mean a missing screw or a bad circuit, because it's the smallest things that make the biggest difference. That's why Intel Vision Technology helps businesses see it all, because everything matters.
So this campaign was really a coordination effort between multiple partners. So Hivestack played the role of the DSP with Intel and the USA team logging into the DSP and essentially connecting to inventory in Japan via the Liveboard SSP. So who is Liveboard? Liveboard is a new company that was formed a year ago. They are a joint venture between Dentsu, the largest agency in Japan, of course, and the largest wireless carrier in Japan called NTT Docomo. And the goal of Liveboard is to aggregate all the super fragmented digital out-of-home landscape in Japan. And they have incredible inventory that they make available programmatically via their supply side all over Japan. And they have 1.2 billion Japanese monthly impressions and growing very, very, very fast. So they have screens that are phenomenal screens in some of the most important areas in Tokyo. Those of you that are familiar with Japan might recognize sort of some of these areas, such as Shinjuku and Shibuya and so forth. Phenomenally beautiful screens in some of the most busiest areas and arguably some of the busiest intersections in the planet. So some of the screens also outside of Tokyo include in important prefectures like Osaka and Fukuoka and Hiroshima, all over Japan. They also have northern Japan, Sapporo as well. So phenomenal inventory. And this is the inventory that we programmatically activated from our DSP for this Intel POC, the 3As campaign. In addition to that, they also have retail screens in Docomo stores through their ownership that they have. They're 51% owned by Docomo, so screens in Docomo stores as well. Also in trains throughout Japan as well. So phenomenal footprint. Now, the way that this campaign was executed through two amazing partnerships we have. LifeSite is our location data partner in Japan. They have almost 15 million monthly unique mobile ad IDs in Japan. That's about 33% of the smartphone population in Japan. So great statistical significance in their data sets. And so they're a great partner to us. Their device graph was used to map IDFA and Android IDs in a GDPR compliant manner, in a privacy compliant manner, to Trade Desk and AppNexus or Xandr IDs, which are then fed into Intel's measurement partner called Bombora. And Bombora has a proprietary measurement methodology that measures intent towards products and services on a B2B basis. So let's quickly end with a quick overview of how this campaign was executed, and I will, of course, wrap this up. So one of the most important things that you should be seeing on my screen here is what was really important to Intel was basically the ability to ensure that this campaign was starting on a time frame when reduced movement patterns due to COVID didn't impact the ability to deliver this campaign. And so our Hivestack's COVID-19 dashboard analyzed movement patterns of healthcare decision makers, manufacturing decision makers, and retail decision makers. And we timed the beginning of this campaign when those audiences were almost near back to a baseline movement patterns compared to January 13. If we look at the Hivestack DSP and look at the actual line items, that's what the programmatic lingo for a flight. We'll open just one of them for a second here. Let's open the retail decision maker line item. And essentially you can see in the DSP how that the DSP was able to programmatically bid on bid requests coming from the Liveboard SSP across all their screens that are making these bid requests. And you can actually see as well on a timeline basis, a visual appreciation across Japan, what screens were activated when. And you can also as well get an appreciation also from a heat map perspective and get a visual appreciation on which screens were ultimately driving the most impressions behind the activations. You can also see the hourly report. So this is what Intel was able to see on a near real-time basis by logging in and getting this transparent appreciation on how the inventory was activated programmatically, chasing this specific audience. And this shows the impressions on an hourly basis across all the different screens. Now the geofences and the audiences were carved out as follows. If you go into the audience geofence section of our DSP, you can see that there was basically a bunch of geofences that were built here. One of them, for example, is this IT conference, and we have the start and the end date of this IT conference. And so what Hivestack's platform does is has the ability to understand, by going into the LifeSite mobile ad ID data, what device IDs were observed inside these geofence groups. And then we're able to understand the movement patterns of these device IDs throughout the day. Now, how did this campaign sort of perform from a measurement perspective? And this is sort of where I'll sort of wrap this up. Essentially, what we were able to do is, with our partnership with LifeSite, they have a device graph that can map exposed device IDs to Trade Desk and Xandr IDs. From there, we feed those into our measurement partner, Bombora. And Bombora essentially provides us with sort of these spreadsheets that give us the weekly scores from 0 to 100 that tell us how well is each of these businesses indexing, or is their intent that's rising towards these specific topics. So they're monstrously huge spreadsheets, and we bring these spreadsheets to life by visually highlighting which topics, specifically, I'm looking at the business section, decision maker section, which topics had the highest lift in Bombora surge score comparing the exposed group to the control group. And you can do this from a manufacturing segment and the retail segment and the healthcare segment as well. And you can see the different healthcare topics and see if we drove lift. You can also drill into the individual companies as well and understand what was the Bombora surge as the campaign was unfolding. Was there a lift in Bombora surge when devices were exposed to programmatic out of home compared to devices that were not? So the summary of the results are, for business decision makers, we saw an 11% lift in Bombora surge when consumers were exposed to out-of-home activations. On the manufacturing segment, we saw 6.8% lift in Bombora surge. In retail segment, we saw 6.9% lift in surge. And in healthcare, we saw an 11.2% lift in surge. Now, this was observed over 1,900 companies, and overall, the weighted lift in overall surge was 8.8%. So this was a POC campaign, and we were thrilled to see that indeed this campaign was able to drive a lift in B2B surge. So with that, I thank you all very, very much for your time, and thank you for listening to this exciting 3A POC outside and by that Intel champion and the Intel IoT team champion. Thank you.
Andreas, thank you so much. This is absolutely the future of every digital out-of-home screen worldwide. To the extent that we have the ability now as an industry, as an advertisement industry, to mimic the world of mobile, the world of online advertisement, it's going to bode really, really well for our industry. The investment in attribution and measurement is going to help our industry increase not only the ad value on a per CPM basis, but I believe we're going to be able to grab a lot more of the ad budget. We're going to become a core media to every multi-channel brand strategy. This is really, really amazing. You know, the future is here for us. We're super, super excited about the investment that people like Hivestack and, you know, Vistar and others, Adomni, Bitposter in Europe, Broadsign. Thank you so much for making our industry programmatic. Andreas, you may have seen the great news that we're year over year, we grew like 369% from a programmatic perspective, which is really, really amazing growth for our industry. Okay.